Welcome to the MI Mental Podcast. My name is Dr. Fonderson, and in this podcast, we explore real life cases involving mental health, medicine, and legal accountability. Today's episode is part of our Doctors in Court series, where we discuss situations in which healthcare professionals, particularly doctors, face scrutiny in court over their professional conduct. This episode centers on a disciplinary case involving a psychiatrist who was accused of several ethical violations related to the care of a patient who was experiencing a severe psychosis. As always, to protect the privacy of those involved, I'll be using fictional names. The details, however, are based on real-life events. In the next couple of minutes, I'll break down the case timeline, explore the claims made by the patient, review the psychiatrist's defense, and provide insights into the disciplinary board's final decision. I'll also dive into some medical terms and leave you with two key questions to reflect on. So, let's get started. Here's a breakdown of the key timeline in this case, which took place over several years. November 2005. Our patient, we'll call her Jane, first came into contact with psychiatric services after experiencing delusional episodes. She was admitted to the hospital for evaluation and was diagnosed with a bipolar disorder featuring manic episodes with psychotic features. In May 26, 2006, Jane was voluntarily admitted to a psychiatric hospital after another manic episode. Dr. Thomas, the psychiatrist on call, was responsible for her care during this time. Jane was experiencing grandiose delusions, including beliefs that she could save humanity. After evaluation, she was diagnosed with a severe manic episode and prescribed antipsychotic medications, but she resisted some of the treatment. July 24, 2006. After a 2-month stay, Jay was discharged from the hospital on medications, including lithium for mood stabilization. She was to continue treatment at an outpatient clinic and to return for regular follow-ups. December 27th to December 28th, 2006, Jane's condition deteriorated and she was involved in an incident of arson. The police brought her to the hospital's emergency psychiatric service, where Dr. Thomas and his team admitted her for inpatient care. Jane was placed under involuntary psychiatric care due to the severity of her condition, which included persistent delusions and refusal to comply with treatment. March 5, 2007, Dr. Thomas met with Jane to evaluate whether she was suitable for transfer to a less restrictive, open psychiatric unit. He decided that due to her continued psychosis and refusal to take antipsychotic medication, she was not stable enough for the transfer. Jane's condition remained largely unchanged, and the team decided to continue treatment in the closed psychiatric ward. Now, these key events set the stage for Jane's formal complaints against Dr. Thomas, which were filed in November 2007. Jane's complaint against Dr. Thomas focused on 4 main accusations. Number 1, threat of involuntary commitment. Jane claimed that during her first hospital stay in May 2006, Dr. Thomas threatened her with involuntary commitment when she expressed a desire to leave. Jane argued that this was a form of coercion and that Dr. Thomas had abused his authority by pressuring her to stay in the hospital under the threat of a forced admission. Number 2, neglect of physical symptoms. Jane also accused Dr. Thomas of neglecting her physical health during her psychiatric treatment. She claimed that despite experiencing pain and discomfort, including headaches and muscle pain, Dr. Thomas did not take her concerns seriously and failed to investigate these symptoms thoroughly. Number 3, lack of personal involvement in her second admission. Jane argued that during her second admission in December 2006, Dr. Thomas did not personally evaluate her, relying instead on reports from his junior colleagues. She felt that Dr. Thomas was indifferent to her condition and didn't provide the direct care she needed during a critical time. And the last point, number 4, refusal to transfer to an open unit. Finally, Jane accused Dr. Thomas of refusing to allow her to transfer to a less restrictive open psychiatric unit during her second stay. She believed that Dr. Thomas was trying to avoid dealing with her by keeping her in a closed ward where she felt isolated and restricted. These were the central points of Jane's case against Dr. Thomas, which she hoped would lead to disciplinary action. Now let's look at how Dr. Thomas responded to these accusations. Number 1, regarding the alleged threat of involuntary commitment. Dr. Thomas denied coercing Jane into staying at the hospital. He explained that he had simply informed her of the legal process that might occur if she left against medical advice, given her psychotic state of mind at the time. He argued that his role was to ensure Jane's safety and well-being, and he wanted her to understand the consequences of leaving without proper care. Dr. Thomas emphasized that at no point did he make threats, but instead provided Jane with a clear understanding of her options. Number 2, physical health concerns. Dr. Thomas acknowledged Jane's complaints about physical discomfort, but explained that these concerns had been addressed during her treatment. She was referred to physiotherapy for her pain, and multiple tests were conducted, including an ECG and an MRI, to rule out underlying causes. Dr. Thomas argued that Jane's physical complaints had been taken seriously and investigated thoroughly. Number 3, involvement in second admission. Dr. Thomas defended his level of involvement in Jane's second hospital admission, explaining that while his junior colleagues handled her day-to-day care, he was in regular communication with them and reviewed her case frequently. He noted that this division of responsibility was standard practice in psychiatric care, and that he remained updated on Jane's condition throughout her stay. And point number 4, decision not to transfer Jane to an open unit. Regarding the refusal to transfer Jane, Dr. Thomas argued that Jane's ongoing psychotic episodes and refusal to take medication made it unsafe for her to be placed in a less restrictive environment. He believed that keeping Jane in a closed ward was necessary to prevent harm to herself and others, and the decision was based on her best interest. Dr. Thomas maintained that his actions were in line with professional standards and that Jane's complaints stemmed from misunderstandings about the nature of her care. The disciplinary board reviewed the evidence presented by both Jane and Dr. Thomas, and here's how they evaluated the claims. Threat of involuntary commitment. Well, the board found that Dr. Thomas's actions during Jane's first admission were appropriate. They concluded that he had not threatened her, but had simply informed her of the potential consequences of leaving the hospital in her condition. The board ruled that Dr. Thomas acted within his professional capacity by prioritizing Jane's safety. Physical health concerns. The board determined that Dr. Thomas had adequately addressed Jane's physical health complaints. They noted that referrals were made for further investigation of her symptoms and that appropriate medical tests were conducted. The board did not find evidence of neglect regarding Jane's physical health. Involvement in second admission. On the issue of personal involvement, the board accepted Dr. Thomas's explanation that it was standard practice for junior staff to manage day-to-day care under supervision. They concluded that Dr. Thomas remained sufficiently involved in Jane's care and treatment and had acted according to accepted practices in psychiatric care. Refusal to transfer. The board supported Dr. Thomas's decision to keep Jane in the closed unit, agreeing that her ongoing psychosis and non-compliance with treatment made it unsafe to transfer her to an open ward. The board found that this decision was made in Jane's best interests and not an attempt to get rid of her, as she had claimed. Final ruling. The board ruled that Jane's complaints were unfounded, and they dismissed the case without taking any disciplinary action. They concluded that Dr. Thomas had acted within the bounds of professional conduct throughout his care of Jane. Now let's break down some of the medical terms and concepts involved in this case. Bipolar disorder, manic episode with psychotic features. This is a mental health condition characterized by extreme mood swings, including manic episodes that can involve delusions or hallucinations. In Jane's case, her psychosis involved grandiose delusions and paranoia. Involuntary commitment. These are legal measures used in psychiatric care when a patient poses a danger to themselves or others and refuses treatment. In this case, Jane was placed under involuntary psychiatric care due to her psychotic state and risk of harm. Closed versus open psychiatric units. A closed psychiatric unit is a secure environment where patients with severe mental health issues are closely monitored. and an open unit is less restrictive and is generally for patients who are more stable and can engage in rehabilitation programs. Now, these terms are important, obviously, to understand the complexity of psychiatric care and why certain decisions were made in Jane's case. Before we close today's episode, I want to leave you with two questions to think about. Number one, how can doctors balance patient autonomy with the need to ensure safety during psychiatric care, especially when dealing with psychotic episodes? Okay, so I've said it before many times. Doctors always have to carefully consider both the patient's rights and their responsibility to protect them from harm. It's important to clearly communicate the risks and the legal framework for psychiatric care. And transparency ultimately helps patients understand why certain actions, like, for example, involuntary commitment, may be necessary. Question number two, what role should medical professionals play in addressing both the physical and mental health complaints in patients with severe psychiatric conditions? It's really important for healthcare providers to always look at both aspects of health and conditions, so physical and mental health, so taking a holistic approach to care. Even in the psychiatric settings, the physical health concerns should not be overlooked. So doing thorough examinations, referrals, and appropriate treatments should completely be integrated into the patient's care plan to ensure comprehensive treatment. Thank you for joining me today. If you enjoyed this episode and want more insights into medical responsibility and psychiatric care, don't forget to follow and tune in for our next episode. And see you next time on the Am I Mental podcast.